Something was moving through the fog below Hoh Ridge. Every radio in the station kept picking up the same voice.
It wasn't static. It was a man whispering coordinates.
Lewis slammed the handset down, but the voice kept bleeding through.
The coordinates belonged to a place that no longer existed.
The Elk Lake Ranger Station burned down in 1987.
I spent 20 years pretending none of this happened.
It gets heavier every winter.
Maybe hearing these stories helps somebody out there.
The Hoh Rainforest doesn't feel like the rest of America.
It feels ancient.
The trees are so large and wet that distance becomes hard to judge.
Locals used to joke the forest swallows sound.
Then hikers started disappearing.
Every single one happened near old ranger routes that no longer existed.
Every missing person had reportedly heard somebody calling for help.
We found her backpack.
It was dry, perfectly clean, and placed upright beside a cedar tree.
There were no tracks around it. The old rangers started talking more openly around the station after dark.
Men who normally laughed at ghost stories suddenly got very careful.
Especially about the old Elk Lake site. Eric radioed us during heavy rainfall.
He said he heard someone whistling near his camp.
The sound kept circling him without getting closer or farther away.
By the time we reached his coordinates, his campsite was empty.
There were footprints, hundreds of them, all around the campsite.
Not entering, not leaving, just circling.
Lewis looked genuinely afraid for the first time.
Then he pointed his flashlight toward the trees.
There was another tent deeper in the forest, an old canvas style.
We stepped inside the old tent and found it.
A radio, just like the one back at the station.
It was burned, but somehow it was still on.
The voice started up again through the static. It was the same coordinates, the ones for Elk Lake. Lewis didn't say a word. He just told us to get out.
We started the long hike back in the dark.
Every time we stopped, we heard footsteps behind us. Bare feet slapping against the wet mud. Then a whistle cut through the air right next to us.
3 short notes, 2 long ones.
One of the guys just lost it and ran into the fog.
We found it, the old Elk Lake Station.
It shouldn't have been there, but it looked brand new.
There was light coming from inside. The door opened on its own. A voice that sounded like Eric told us we finally came back.
I didn't want to go in, but I couldn't leave Lewis.
Inside, it was like time had just stopped. There were people standing in the shadows.
They were wearing old uniforms, just watching us.
I saw Eric at the end of the hall. He was soaking wet and just staring into space.
He said it didn't know how to be people yet.
Then the lights went out.
Voices started whispering our names from everywhere.
I just ran. I didn't look back.
I made it out, but I was alone.
I saw lights in the trees, hundreds of them.
Lewis never came back, and neither did the others.
The official reports just called it a tragic accident.
I spent years trying to tell myself it was just exhaustion.
I really wanted to believe it was all just a bad dream.
Then last winter, a hiker sent something to the station.
It was an old photo that just about stopped my heart.
It showed 6 rangers standing outside the old Elk Lake Station.
5 of them were looking right at the camera.
But the 6th one was just standing there in the trees.
He looked tall and blurred, like he didn't belong there at all.
I flipped the photo over, and my blood just ran cold.
There were the coordinates, written in fresh ink.
And underneath it said, "Still trying to remember your face."
I burned that picture 3 months ago, hoping it would stop. But the forest, it just doesn't let go that easy. Every November when the rain hits, the radios turn on by themselves.
It starts with a low hum that vibrates through the walls.
Then underneath all that noise, I start hearing the whispering.
It's not just coordinates anymore. It's voices from people long gone.
And always, I hear those bare feet in the mud. They just circle the building over and over again.
I sit here in the dark, knowing something's waiting for me.
The forest is patient. It's been here forever.
It can wait as long as it needs to for me to come back.
I don't know if I'm being hunted or if I'm just the last witness.
Sometimes I think about going back to those coordinates.
Just to see if the station is still waiting in the fog.
But then I remember the voices, and I know I'm staying right here. If you're out there and you hear that whistling, don't follow it.
If you find a place that isn't on the map, just turn around.
Some things are better left lost in the fog.
I keep the radio turned off now, but it doesn't seem to matter. Even with the power cord pulled from the wall, the static still finds a way to bleed through.
It's like the air itself is carrying the signal from somewhere else.
Say in a natural American voice.
my finger always stops right over the Elk Lake area.
It's a ghost on the paper, just like it is in the woods. I wonder if Lewis is still out there, wandering those same paths.
He was the one who wanted the truth, but maybe the truth is just another way to get lost. I hope he found some kind of peace, even if I never will.
The rain is starting to pick up again, drumming against the roof like fingers.
It's that time of year when the fog rolls in and stays for weeks.
Everything feels heavy, like the forest is leaning in closer to the station. I check the perimeter every night, but there's never anything there.
Just mud and the smell of wet pine and that feeling of being watched.
That's a game I've been playing with the shadows for 20 years. Sometimes I think I hear a whistle, just a faint sound carried on the wind.
3 short notes, then 2 long ones.
I tell myself it's just the wind in the trees, but I know better than that.
I don't sleep much anymore.
The nights are too long and the silence is too loud.
I spend my time going through old files, looking for something I missed, some clue that might explain why this is happening. But there are no answers in the files.
Just more questions and more names of people who vanished without a trace.
It's like the forest is keeping a list, and I'm just waiting for my turn to be added to it.
I keep the lights low, hoping that if I don't draw attention to myself, maybe it'll leave me alone.
But I know that's just a lie I tell myself to get through the night.
It knows I'm here.
So I wait. I wait for the rain to stop, or for the radio to start again, or for the footsteps to finally reach the door.
I'm not going anywhere.
This is where I belong now, in the heart of the fog. The radio on my desk suddenly crackles to life.
It's unplugged, but the voice is clear. It sounds just like Carlton, calling out from the static.
I stare at the radio, my hands trembling. The voice repeats the numbers. A haunting chant. I know I should turn it off, but I can't move. Outside, the rain has turned into a torrential downpour.
The fog is so thick now that the porch light is just a dim blur.
I feel like the forest is closing in on me.
I walk to the window and press my hand against the cold glass. There's nothing but the shifting gray wall of the forest.
I swear I see a shape moving between the trees.
The radio voice stops abruptly, replaced by a long, low whistle. It's the same pattern Eric described before he vanished. 3 short notes, then 2 long ones, echoing through the room.
I grab my flashlight and head for the door.
My heart is hammering against my ribs.
I need to know if someone is out there.
Stepping onto the porch, the cold rain hits my face.
I sweep the flashlight beam across the yard. The light just dies in the thick, swirling fog. Then I hear it again, closer this time. Bare feet slapping against the mud, circling the station. I swing the light toward the sound, but there's only trees.
I call out, my voice sounding small and fragile.
No one answers, but the whistling starts again.
I spin around, but there's nothing there.
I retreat back inside and lock the door. My hands are shaking so hard I can barely turn the key. I can still hear the footsteps outside, pacing back and forth. I sat on the floor with my back against the door, listening to the rhythmic pacing outside.
The footsteps were heavy, deliberate, and never seemed to stop or change their path. I clutched my flashlight like a weapon, though I knew it wouldn't do anything against whatever was out there. The radio on the desk suddenly flared to life again, but this time it wasn't just coordinates. A woman's voice, sharp and frantic, began sobbing through the static. It sounded like someone I had known years ago, someone who had been gone for a long time. I crawled toward the desk, my eyes locked on the radio as if it were a bomb about to go off. The sobbing turned into a whisper, a name being repeated over and over.
It was my own name, spoken with a familiarity that made my skin crawl.
I reached out and yanked the wires from the back of the unit, but the voice didn't stop.
It just kept going, louder now, filling the entire room. The walls seemed to vibrate with the sound of a dozen voices all whispering at once.
I scrambled to my feet and backed away, hitting the wall behind me. The room felt smaller, the air thick with the smell of ozone and wet pine.
I knew then that I couldn't stay here, but the door was blocked by something heavy on the other side. Outside, the pacing stopped.
A long, heavy silence fell over the station, broken only by the sound of rain hitting the roof.
Then, a soft, rhythmic tapping began on the window glass, like someone trying to get my attention. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help myself. I crept toward the window, my heart pounding in my ears. Through the rain and the fog, I saw a pale, blurred face pressed against the glass, staring directly at me. The face didn't move, didn't blink. It just watched me with eyes that looked like empty, dark pits. I realized then that it wasn't a person, but something that had taken the shape of one. I turned and ran for the back exit, not caring about the noise I was making. I burst out into the cold, wet night, the forest swallowing me whole. Behind me, the station door creaked open, and I heard the sound of bare feet hitting the mud. I didn't look back. I just kept running, my lungs burning, my boots slipping on the wet moss. I knew that if I stopped, I would never be seen again, and the forest would have another story to tell. I stumbled through the brush, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Every shadow looked like a person, and every rustle sounded like footsteps. The cold fog clung to my skin, making it hard to see. I stopped to lean against a tree, my heart hammering. I listened, hoping to hear the wind, but the forest was silent. Then, from behind me, I heard that familiar whistling start up again. 3 short notes. 2 long ones. It was the same pattern Eric had described before he vanished. I didn't wait to see who was making the sound. I just started running again. The fog thickened, turning the world into a swirling gray void. I couldn't see the trail, just the shapes of trees that seemed to shift. It felt like the forest was trying to lead me deeper into the dark. I tripped over a root and went down hard. As I scrambled up, I saw a faint flickering light through the trees. It looked like a lantern, but it felt wrong in this place. I stood up, my legs shaking, and moved toward the light. The closer I got, the more the forest seemed to change. The trees were no longer the cedars I knew, but something else. It was the Elk Lake Station. The charred beams were still standing, and the smell of smoke was strong. It was like stepping back in time, into a memory that refused to die. I approached the front door, my hand trembling as I reached for the handle. It creaked open, revealing a warm, yellow-lit interior. I could see maps on the walls and coffee mugs on the desk. Inside, there were shapes standing in the doorways, watching me. They didn't move, but I could feel their eyes on me. It was like the station was filled with ghosts of the past. Then I saw him. Eric. He was standing at the far end of the hallway, barefoot and soaking wet. He looked at me, and then the lanterns went out. The darkness was absolute, swallowing the station whole as the lanterns died. I could hear dozens of voices whispering my name from every corner of the room. Panic surged through me as I realized there was no way out. I bolted toward the back of the building, my hands clawing at the wooden walls. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to get away. I finally found a window and threw myself through it, landing hard in the mud. I didn't look back at the station. I just ran, my boots slipping on the slick forest floor. The cold rain hit my face like needles, but I barely felt it. Something was pacing me in the fog, matching my speed perfectly. I could hear the soft, rhythmic thud of bare feet on the mud.
Every time I stopped, the footsteps stopped too, waiting in the silence.
I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw them. Not flashlights, but eye shine, hundreds of them, glowing at different heights. They were watching me, waiting for me to stumble.
I finally broke through the tree line near dawn, collapsing onto the main trail.
I was alone.
Lewis was gone, the volunteer was gone, and the forest behind me was silent.
Years passed, and I tried to bury the memory.
But then, a backpacker mailed me an old photograph they found near Hoh Ridge.
It showed the original Elk Lake Rangers, but there was something standing in the tree line. The figure was tall, blurred, and wrong. On the back, in fresh ink, were the same coordinates I had heard on the radio.
And a final chilling sentence. Still trying to remember your face.
I burned the photo, hoping it would end, but it never does.
Every November, when the rain gets heavy, the radios in the station turn on by themselves.
I hear the static, the whispering, and the sound of those bare feet circling the building. I don't know what it wants, or if it'll ever stop. I just know that I'm still here, waiting for the next November.
Maybe one day, it'll finally remember my face.
I sit here in the quiet of the station, staring at the radio on my desk.
It's been years, but the fear never really leaves you.
I keep waiting for the static to break, for that voice to come back and finish what it started.
The rain outside is relentless tonight, drumming against the glass like fingers.
It's the kind of weather that brings the fog rolling in off the ridge. I can barely see the tree line anymore. I remember the way the forest felt back then, like it was holding its breath.
Every step you took felt like an intrusion.
The moss seemed to swallow every sound we made.
We thought we were just doing our jobs, searching for people who got lost.
We didn't realize the forest was changing the rules. It wasn't just about getting lost anymore. I still see Lewis in my dreams sometimes, kneeling in the mud by those footprints. He looked so small against the trees.
He knew, even then, that we were in over our heads.
The radio static is starting to change.
It's not just noise anymore.
There's a rhythm to it, like someone breathing on the other side of the line. I wonder if they're still out there, wandering the old routes. Maybe they're just waiting for someone to find them. Or maybe they're waiting for someone to join them. I keep my wedding band on, even when I'm alone. It's the only thing that feels real anymore. Everything else is just memories and shadows. The wind is picking up.
I can hear it whistling through the trees. 3 short notes, then 2 long ones.
It's getting closer, I think.
I'm not going to run this time.
I'm just gonna sit here and write. Maybe it'll finally remember my face tonight. The radio on my desk just came to life. It isn't even plugged into the wall. There's this weird, rhythmic static filling the room. I look out the window, but the forest is gone. It's like the station is just floating in a void. The silence out there is getting really heavy. I keep thinking about that old photograph I burned. There was this tall, blurred figure standing near the trees. I can almost see that same shape moving in the fog right now. The static just shifted, and I heard a voice.
It's faint, but it's definitely a man whispering coordinates.
It's the same voice that led us to the ruins of Elk Lake.
I reach out and touch the radio.
It feels like a relic from a nightmare I never woke up from. The air in here's getting cold. I can see my breath. Wait, I hear it outside. 3 short notes, then 2 long ones. It's circling the station, just like it did back then. I walk to the door and put my hand on the handle.
I know what's waiting out there in the dark.
I just need to know if it's finally going to show itself.
The whistling just stopped.
The silence is even worse than the noise.
I can feel eyes watching me from the trees.
I take a deep breath and turn the handle.
The door creaks open, revealing nothing but the fog.
I step out onto the porch. My heart is pounding.
I stand here in the rain, just waiting.
The forest is silent, but I know it's still watching.
Maybe this time I'll finally understand.